I tell you, who'd have thought this would happen? Now I have to just hold on to the speech so it doesn't blow away. Mr. Chancellor, Mr. President, members of the graduating class, faculty, family, and friends. Well, thank you so much. What a wonderful honor. It's such a pleasure to be here for this. And I think I struggled more over this speech than some of the novels I've done. So I was so angst-ridden about what to say. So what I did was I had speech number 1, and then we've got speech number 2, and I thought we'd let you folks decide which one I'll do. And just so you know, they're both the same length. So it's a bit like, let's make a deal. So if we have a vote for sort of who wants to hear speech number 1, we'll just sort of see nobody. I couldn't have predicted that. So speech number 1, not too many. Speech number 2, who'd like to hear so? All right. So we have an overwhelming response for speech number 2. So what I'm going to do is give speech number 1. And this can be your first lesson about going out into the world, that people may say they want your opinion, but they really don't. I was in Ottawa a couple of weeks ago for a literary festival, and I ran into someone that I went to school with here, and she had a room over at Lady Eaton, and it came up that I was getting this honorary Doctor of Letters, and I'd said to her, if I had known they were just going to give this to me later, I wouldn't have had to work so hard while I was here. And she said, yeah, you worked so hard, But it's, I don't know, that's how I remember it. Where's Gordon? I remember working hard, I think. But evidently I've reached the point in life where I'm asked to give a convocation address because the folks that run this place think by now that he must know something beyond what was in the Coles notes. People like your president here, I'm amazed he has a kayak in his office down at the back here by the river. And I'd be interested to see what happened if they'd given him the office on the top floor, how that would have gone. Probably a hang glider, I suppose. And of course, we also have your Chancellor, Don Tapscott, who is easily the most brilliant guy on the planet about what the future holds, about what sort of technological revolutions are coming. And yet, if you ask him to come to your house to fix your printer, he acts like he doesn't know you, But I have to be honest and tell you, I was in this spot, I guess, 39 years ago, and I have no idea who gave the convocation speech when I was graduating. And so, I will forgive all of you if, some 39 years from now, you haven't got a clue who spoke to you today. But they probably, whoever it was who spoke to me, probably said something like, seize the day, go change the world, go do all these wonderful things. The kind of things they always say in convocation speeches. And I was probably thinking, like you no doubt are, seriously? You want me to go out and change the world? I just need a job. I'm paying off my loans, give me a break. So I can't claim to have changed the world. If anything, the world is probably worse off than it was 39 years ago. We've got climate change, we've got a Mideastern chaos, we've got threats of terrorism, we have a kind of, I think these days, a celebration of ignorance. And worst of all, we've got Donald Trump. Please don't hold me accountable for these things, especially the last one. The truth is, I haven't changed the world, but I think that maybe the world has changed me. Sitting where you are right now, back in 1977, I had it all figured out. I knew exactly what I was going to do when I left here. If my life were a book, I had the plot all worked out. I was going to be a best-selling novelist. Right out of the gate, I'd write a brilliant crime novel every year, just like my hero, the writer Ross MacDonald. That was the plan. And I can't even get these pages apart because of the wind. So I lived only 50 clicks from here in Bobcaygeon. And I basically was running my mother's cottage resort and trailer park since my father had passed away when I was 16. In fact, that was why I had chosen Trent, because it was close to home and I could still run the family business while I attended university. So the post-Trent plan was, I'd run the resort in the summer and I'd write the best-selling novels in the winter. It was a great plan. And I had a head start too, because I had already written a couple of novels, in my late teens and into my 20s. And I had, in fact, one of my professors, God bless him, Lee Beach, who taught an English and psychology course, allowed me to write a novel for his class instead of an essay. I would write 50,000 words if it got me out of doing footnotes and a bibliography. I could never figure out where the dots and the semicolons went and all that stuff. It was just beyond me. And so I figured, well, I was in good shape to kickstart my career. But then came the plot twist. My books were terrible. Now, for those of you who've read a lot of things, like perhaps 50 Shades, you might not think that's a drawback. But for me, it was. And you think that email and texting are fast. Like I could go to the post office and mail off my manuscript to some New York publisher, and by the time I got home, the rejection slip was there. So in the words of my GPS, I had to recalculate. The world, as it turned out, had other things in mind for me. It hadn't really occurred to me to get a job at a newspaper, but I thought, well, I'd like to write, and you get to write every day at a paper. So I got a reporting job down the road at the Peterborough Examiner. I was hired for $120 a week, which actually back then was not a lot of money. And my first assignment was to interview hospital candy stripers, the young girls who help out and volunteer around the hospital. It was not really the stuff of Raymond Chandler. But I didn't know then how lucky I was that my plans had been derailed. I spent 2 years at the Examiner, 5 if you count overtime. And it was a great couple of years. I covered Cavan Township Council and cattle shows and fraud trials and Ontario Municipal Board hearings. And if those sound boring, you are correct. And bank robberies and plane crashes, you name it. A few times I actually got to go into Warkworth Penitentiary to cover events, and I was always grateful that they let me leave. So those books that I had written at that early age, they were rejected for a reason. I didn't know anything. I had nothing to write about. I had nothing to say. I hadn't been out in the world. I hadn't experienced things. I needed to get out into that world, and Peterborough County was a pretty big one for me at that time. By 1981, I ended up at the Toronto Star, but again, things there didn't even go according to plan. I had applied for a reporting job, but they didn't need reporters at the time. They needed editors, copy editors. Did I have copy editing experience, they asked. And I said, sure. Here's a tip, never lie on your resume. Never claim to be something that you aren't on social media. But in a conversation, a simple, sure, will probably not haunt you forever. I got the job, and fortunately it turned out that I could edit. And before long, I moved up the ranks. I was assistant city editor at the Toronto Star. I was news editor, chief copy editor, the life section editor. And then 12 years after joining the paper, 16 years after abandoning that dream of being an author, an unexpected opportunity came along to write 3 columns a week. Okay, it wasn't crime writing, but it was real writing about what I wanted to write about. It was a job I did and I loved, and I did it for 14 years. And about 10 years into that job, I thought, maybe it's time. Maybe it's time to write a book, the kind of a book that I wanted to write when I was your age. So I did it, and with the aid of a literary agent, I sent it off to a publisher. This time, it didn't come back. So after 30 years of working in newspapers, I was finally doing what I wanted to do when I was 20. Now that might sound really discouraging. I mean, you're thinking, I gotta wait 30 years to do what I really want to do. And that's really not my intention. You think, what worked out for me was, I'm okay with the way things turned out. I'm not someone who kind of believes in fate that things happen for a reason. I'm not that kind of a guy, but I must confess that I agree with the cliche that often it's not about the destination, it's about the journey. So have that goal, but don't be so focused on it that you aren't willing to deviate from the path you had in mind. There are great opportunities out there waiting for you that you can't even imagine. And doing nothing while you wait for just the right thing to come along is worse than standing still. It's moving backwards. My wife, Neetha, who Gordon referenced here, who I met here and married not long after graduating. I left Trent with a degree and the love of my life, which is not something Trent mentions a lot in its promotional material. Although I think it's something they might want to take a look at, you know. But anyway, Neetha is really very wise, and she sees a lot of value in having a bad job. Because a bad job shows you what you don't want to do for the rest of your life. Back when I was running that cottage resort and fishing camp, one of my daily duties was to bury fish guts. All that stuff that was left over after our guests cleaned their catch. They'd go out fishing and there was this table down by the lake and they'd cut their fish and dump the stuff they didn't want in a pail, and it was my job to haul it into the woods and bury it. And the day that the bottom of the pail broke haunts me to this day. But you don't have to bury fish guts for all that long before you come to the conclusion that it offers a limited career path. So I left here with a plan and it didn't happen, at least not for a very long time. And I can't think of anything I would go back and change. So be open. You've plenty of time for detours and wrong turns. Go out there. You have no idea what's coming, and that's what's so fantastic. Let the world happen to you. Thank you.